Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Gregory Leperati. I'm Associate Director in Baruch's Office of Alumni Relations and Volunteer Engagement. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. For the past couple of years, our office has been increasing the amount of career offerings we have for alumni, events, as well as benefits and discounts. And we're here today to discuss a new discount package available to our alumni, Hogan Career Assessments. Leading the discussion today is Gordon Kent, the president and founder of Progressive Career. Gordon's had a distinguished career, including C-level positions at major banks. He played a lead role in the creation of the acclaimed degree apprenticeship program in the United Kingdom, and has held C-suite roles in both business and IT. Also joining us today are Sonia Hamilton and Diane Berner from Performance Programs Incorporated, which is what's offering the Hogan discount for our alumni. They'll also be able to answer questions. For all of our alumni, if you have any questions during this presentation, please leave a question in the chat bar at the bottom of the screen, and we will stop to address certain questions or get to them at the end, depending on their urgency. So without further ado, I now present Gordon.
Greg, did we hear somebody on the line there who had a question or wanted to say something? I'm not sure whether we did or not.
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gordon Kent. Greg, thank you for the introduction. I'm a professional career and executive career coach. I have coached numerous people in my coaching career, including C-level executives, mid-career professionals, and young people and new career starters just starting out in their career. I've coached a number of people in all of those different categories. I'm very, very happy to introduce you to the Baruch Alumni Relations Hogan Assessments Package, this new benefit that Greg was talking about. And I'm going to try to move as quickly as I can through this information. Thank you all for all of those of you who have signed up. You're obviously somewhat interested in this, and I'm going to try to give you some information and encourage you to sign up for this really cool new benefit. So we're going to talk today about two reports. I'm going to flip these slides ahead as we go here. We're going to talk about two reports: the career report, which will give you some great information about your potential and your strengths and weaknesses and reputation. And I'm also going to give you some information about the Compass report, the Hogan Compass report, which is about your drivers and your values, and a tremendous amount of information that if you sign up for this package, you will receive. So let me first take you to a brief description of the package itself. As you have seen on the website previously, the Alumni Package price is $80 and includes the two Hogan assessments, which I just recently, just a moment ago, mentioned, the Career and Compass report. It also includes a special Baruch Alumni Interpretive Guide, something that we've developed especially for this program that will help you in a generalized way understand and interpret your Career and Compass report. And the offer also includes a 45-minute professional coaching session at Baruch College with me. A little bit about myself. In this regard, I am certified in Hogan assessments. You can't buy Hogan assessments on the street. They're a very specialized personality assessment instrument. And in order to be able to distribute them and assess them, you have to be certified in Hogan. I am. And as such, I will be able to help you understand your reports along with the interpretive guide. And I'll be able to answer any questions that you may have, make suggestions that may come out of the report, etc. I'm going to pause there just for a second and ask if there are any questions so far, if anybody wants to just sort of jump in. And as Greg mentioned, you can do that, and you can also go on the chat.
Yeah, feel free to leave questions at the chat bar at the bottom if you're in full screen, and we'll address them as we go along. So far, no questions, Gordon.
Cool. All right. What do you need to do? If you're interested, and I strongly suggest that this is a terrific benefit, What do you need to do? You need to sign up and pay for the Baruch Alumni Assessments Package. You need to complete the 2 questionnaires for the Career and Compass reports. Each questionnaire will take you about 15 or 20 minutes to complete. You can stop at any time and resume. You can hit the submit button to complete. And when you do that, your report will be available online within no more than a couple of minutes. You'll be able to hit the view button to view and download your reports. And shortly thereafter, you'll get an email from me with instructions on how we can schedule together your 45-minute session. And again, this will be at Baruch College. We have some facilities that we've set aside for this purpose, and I'll be happy to give you more information. There's some information on your screen if you have questions about this, and as you can see there's also a website. So that's information about the program, the offer, the benefit. And let me give you a little bit more information now, if I can, about the assessments themselves, the Hogan assessments themselves. So first we'll talk about the career report. And the career report evaluates you, measures you on the basis of these different scales. There are 7 different scales. These are called the Hogan Personality Index scales. That's why HPI is on the left there. And as you can see, these scales are called adjustment, ambition, sociability, interpersonal sensitivity, prudence, inquisitiveness, and learning approach. And from the slide, you can see that each of these scales and your scores on these scales will give you insight regarding a different aspect of your professional performance and behavior. And let me just stop there and emphasize that Hogan is renowned in the industry for a couple of things, one of which is its professional or business orientation. This is personality assessment specifically as it relates to your performance and your behaviors and your strengths and weaknesses at work, your professional characteristics. And this is also information that will give you a great, this is data that will give you a great deal of information about your reputation as seen by others. And Hogan is really quite unique in that regard. So adjustment, for example, will give you insight regarding your resilience, your emotional resilience. Lower scores, for example, will be more vigilant, self-aware, urgent, pessimistic, tense, and stress-prone, while higher scores tend to be more resilient, optimistic, composed, arrogant, and feedback resistant. And you can see just from those very brief descriptions that there are both positives and negatives associated with both kinds of scores. And you can see the other scales. Ambition has to do with directedness. High ambition score is a person who generally displays higher self-confidence, higher drive, higher energy, may be more forceful, may sometimes overcompete. People with high sociability are usually socially proactive, team-oriented, distractible, and sometimes not good listeners. Sometimes they can talk more than they can listen. I'm not going to read you all of the different scales. I'm going to leave this up on the screen here for a couple of minutes, and you can all take a look at the different scales and the different behaviors, lower score behaviors and higher score behaviors. You can think a little bit about what you might be like with respect to these scores. And if you take the Hogan Career Report, you will get a tremendous amount of information and insight regarding your characteristics, your behaviors, your strengths, your weaknesses with regard to each of these categories. I'm going to switch to the next slide and explain this to you in a slightly different way that I think may be helpful. So, as I have said, high or low scale scores may be strengths or shortcomings, depending upon the demands of your particular job environment. Hogan's questions will be, and here are some examples of them. They will be similar to, I frequently do things on impulse. People think I'm a nonconformist. I like to do things on the spur of the moment. And as you can see, this particular respondent said true for all of these questions and the two additional ones. So a respondent who filled out these questions might identify themselves, as you can see, as a fun, spontaneous individual that looks forward to starting each day with a clean slate, ready to meet whatever challenges life has to offer. That's one of the aspects that Hogan would evaluate you and your responses in. The other, and the thing that makes Hogan really unique and that you will gain tremendous insight from, is the interpretations that your answers represent. So here are the same questions with the same answers. I never know what I'll do tomorrow. True. Sometimes I enjoy going against the rules. True. Hogan's interpretation of those responses might be something like, individuals responding this way tend to be inattentive to details, resist supervision, ignore small process steps, not plan ahead, and rarely think through the consequences of their actions. Now, that's an extreme case, and I used this particular set of answers as an extreme case. First, your responses represent, and second, what our interpretations might represent. But the important thing here is that the Hogan questionnaires are not 5 questions. There are a couple of hundred questions that'll take you 15 minutes or so for each questionnaire to do. And the combination of your answers to all those questions is what really begins to develop a profile. So again, insight and a report called a career report with your scores on each of these different scales, and importantly, how those scores combine to make up your individual profile, your uniquely individual profile, and how others might see you. And one more characteristic of Hogan before I move on to the other report is that it is also renowned for being very data-driven, very scientifically data-driven. So all of the reports that you will get back that interpret your answers are very statistically valid. I'm going to talk now, unless, Greg, do we have any questions that anybody might want to ask?
No questions at the moment, Gordon.
Okay, I'm just going to pause for a second and give people a chance to digest a little bit what we've covered so far and think about whether they have any questions or whether they'd like more information about it.
And as an FYI, on the group chat in this Zoom session, I put the link there to purchase the package as well as learn more about it. So alumni can feel free to check out the chat for the link to go purchase it.
Okay, cool. So first report, as we discussed, Hogan Personality Inventory, which gives you insight regarding these characteristics. And it takes the shape of the Hogan Career Report, specially produced along with an interpretive guide for Baruch alumni. The second report addresses more your core values. And I'm going to talk a little bit about your core values and what they mean in this context, in the Hogan personality assessment context. So your core values are first of all, we call them drivers. They're the things that motivate you. And as you'll see in a moment regarding the Compass report, you're going to get information about the things that motivate you. The things that motivate you and drive you and your core values will also give you a lot of insight as to how well you fit within a particular organizational culture. Now, that culture might be your own, the one where you work today, or it might be another one that you may have in mind. So your core values provide a lot of insight about fit where you might fit well. They also provide insight about your leadership style, the culture that you create as a leader. If in fact you are a leader, if in fact you have staff, what sort of style do you create? And that's very much based on your core values. And lastly, you'll gain some insight about your unconscious biases, perceptions of your experience about what is desirable or undesirable. And your core values very much influence and drive your unconscious biases. So the Compass Report, the Baruch Hogan Compass Report, will give you insight about these core values. And much the way we looked at these scales when we looked at HPI, we're going to look at these scales when we look at the Compass Report. So we're going to look at, and I'm going to explain very briefly in a moment what each of these scales means. So what you're going to get information about with respect to these core values. So here's the list: recognition, power, hedonism, altruistic, affiliation, tradition, security, commerce, aesthetics, and science. And what Hogan has found in its research and its science, its data science, is that your core values and mine and nearly all other people in the professional workplace can be defined by measuring them with respect to these 10 different scales. So let me just tell you a little bit about what each scale is and what you'll get some insight about. Recognition concerns valuing fame, visibility, publicity, how interested in being known and recognized you are. Now, some people seek publicity and visibility in different ways, but this generally measures how much recognition your core values drive you to seek. Power concerns valuing competition, achievement, and being perceived as influential, interested in challenge, competition, and a lifestyle organized around worldly success. And I'm going to sort of qualify that word worldly at the end and say that means your world. That doesn't have to be global or national or statewide or company-wide. I would define this much more as your own particular world of success. But power very much will measure how much you are driven towards these sorts of achieving kinds of things. Hedonism. Valuing fun, good company, good times. Interested in pleasure, excitement, and variety. And you might not think so, but this has a very big impact. This core value and how you score on this has a very big impact on whether a particular organizational culture, job culture, will be a good fit for you. Because people who score high on hedonism, who value fun, good company, good times at work, are not going to fit well in an all workaholic culture, as an example. So that's what hedonism measures. Altruistic. This concerns actively helping others and improving society. Interested in providing good customer service and building a better workplace. And again, I'm going to go back on a particular word here, society, and say this, again, doesn't necessarily have to have a very broad definition. Society can be a very locally defined thing. But this has to do with wanting to do the right thing for whatever your particular groups of interest, your friends, your family, your larger groups, wanting to do the right thing for them and for others. Affiliation. Affiliation, the core driver called affiliation, concerns valuing frequent and varied social interaction. This has to do with being interested in networking, feeling a sense of belonging to a group or organization. This has to do with a core value that drives people or not in the direction of socialization. And I'm going to use this, and I'm going to quickly go back to an earlier slide that we looked at, a slide that comes from the career report. And you'll see a scale in the career report called sociability. And the affiliation scale that we were just talking about, this one, valuing frequent and varied social interaction, etc. That's a core value. That's what drives you or not. And often those will be manifested as strengths or weaknesses in the way that you come across to others. And in this case, sociability, this particular characteristic, generally people who score very high on affiliation will score very high on being socially proactive, team-oriented, distractible, and talks more than listens. Not necessarily all the time, but there are correlations here. So you're going to gain insight into both what motivates you and also how it appears to others. So that was affiliation. We have a few more of these to cover. This is valuing similarity between the organizations and the employees' perspectives on tradition, history, and old-fashioned virtues. Tradition is one of these terms, one of these scales that is pretty much self-explanatory. Some of them are not quite as much the terminology. This one is valuing tradition. This concerns valuing similarity between the organizations and the employees' perspectives on tradition, history, and old-fashioned virtues. This is a little bit the individual and a little bit the organization's traditions. Security. This concerns valuing certainty, predictability, and risk-free environments. So if you're a big risk taker, you will not score high on security. This concerns being interested in structure, order, predictability, and planning for the future. So people who score high on this characteristic are generally people who are very planful and like things to be very structured and predictable. Commerce. This concerns valuing business activities. The simple definition here has to do with simply money. This concerns valuing business activities, money, and financial gain. Interested in earning money, realizing profits, finding business opportunities, making investments. So generally, this has to do with making money and people who are interested in doing that. There can be numerous reasons behind that, but as a core value, this is something that we measure and obviously is demonstrated in the workplace. Greg, I'm going to just take a breath for a second. Any questions or any comments from anyone?
So far, no questions. I think the explanation has been thorough, and I haven't received any questions. If anyone does have one, please, by all means, share it in the group chat, and we will address it.
Cool. So more core values, commerce, and the next one is aesthetics. And this concerns valuing creative and artistic self-expression. This is people who are more interested in quality, product look and feel, attractive surroundings, the look of things, the image of things, the branding of things, and how it's projected. People who score high on aesthetics are generally more interested in that. Next and last thing that we measure is science. And this concerns valuing ideas, technology, rational problem solving. People who score high on this are interested in an analytical approach to solving problems and understanding how things work, or not. And again, let me emphasize as often as I can that high scores and low scores are both good and can both be bad. They have both positive and negative characteristics associated to them. And that's really what the essence of the Hogan Career and Compass reports for you are. The Compass and Career reports are an amalgamation of your scores on all of these scales. And what really characterizes you is the combination of your scores. What characterizes you is the things that you score particularly high on or particularly low on. But what characterizes you is the combination, the unique combination of you on all of these scores. And similarly, in the workplace, as seen by others, the way that you demonstrate and have strengths and weaknesses in each of these characteristics and the unique combination of all of them that you represent is what defines you. And that's what you will gain from these Hogan reports. Insight into the unique combination of scores that are you and the unique challenges as well as opportunities, strengths and weaknesses that your scores represent in the workplace. And here again are your core values. So I'm going to summarize the Compass report. These are the same scales that we've been talking about, right? Back up here, we looked at the scales, the Compass report scales. And I'm going to just take one more quick look at them with you in a slightly different look. So the three red scales, red lines on this slide, recognition, power, and hedonism, are grouped together into a group of scales that we call status scales. And these have, again, the desire, your desire to be known, seen, visible, famous, high achieving, etc. So we group those three into status. We group the next three, altruistic, affiliation, and tradition, into a group of scales and scores called your social core values. There are two, security and commerce, that we group into what we consider to be your financial core values. And the last two, aesthetics, and let me just pause on aesthetics, and the definition here is a good one because it talks a little bit less about things, how things look, and a little bit more about the need for self-expression and the dedication to quality. And that's very much a part of aesthetics. And hence, along with the science characteristic, interest in science, comfort with technology, and so on, those two are grouped together and very strongly influence your decision style. So what we do with the core values is we organize them, they're all 10 of them, and we look at them in this way, and you gain insight into yourself and what motivates you and drives you and what would be good fits for you as a result of understanding your core values in a much deeper way than you might today. If there are no questions, I'm going to begin to end this session by reviewing the two slides that we covered at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. These are the packages themselves, the package itself. And I'm not going to read it, but I'm just going to put it up on the screen. Mm-hmm. And if there are any of you who have questions about it or would like us to elaborate on it, we can. That is the package.
Wonderful.
And the last slide is what do I need to do? And there it is once again.
Mhm. We have one question, Gordon. A participant wants to know what exactly would the benefits of taking this assessment be? How would the results translate for individuals?
The results will give you much greater insight into, first of all, yourself and what motivates you and what drives you in the workplace and where those motivations might best fit in terms of workplace opportunities. And it will also give you unique information about your strengths and weaknesses, particularly as seen by others in the workplace. So generally, one of the things that we don't know, even if we have good insight about ourselves, is how do others see us? How might others react to the things that we do and the things that drive us? And in particular, the career report will give you insight about that. And the coaching session with myself will also give you insight about all of these things.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, Gordon, I think this would be a great opportunity for people if they're looking for a career change and want to know what would be the best fit or whether what they want to pursue is a good fit, or people who simply want to know how others perceive them in their current office place, as well as, you know, just the opportunity to sort of see what type of environment they thrive in the most. So it really could apply to a wide range of alumni, right, Gordon?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And just to elaborate or build on that, Hogan is very much a tool that is used in the workplace among senior professionals, senior executives, mid-career professionals who are thinking about a career change and looking for some information that might be helpful to them. As well as it is also in sort of somewhat scaled down versions useful for graduates and students looking for guidance about where they might head out in their careers. So yes, Greg, there's all kinds of information for many, many different kinds of people in the workplace.
And you know, another obvious perk of this is you not only get the assessments themselves, so you can learn about yourself that way, but you also get the session with Gordon, who can give you his perspective on your strengths, your weaknesses, and so you know, it's not only the report, but you're able to get that sort of one-on-one time with Gordon, which is also beneficial to have sort of another person assess it with you. Excellent.
I see here that Benjamin Wang had said, can you go back to the slide with the core values? I'm happy to do that. That was somewhat.
Yeah, I think you had gone back to that.
Yeah, I think we did
right
that.
when you, yeah, so you got that down.
Yeah. My question back to Evan and everyone else, have I explained well enough, or do you have further questions about how the results would translate for individuals?
Any other questions? Please, please submit. And of course, you can always reach out to myself, and I'll be following up with the group after this webinar is over. You can always follow up with me for more information, or if you have any additional questions. Also, as I said earlier, there is a link to learn more and to purchase the package in the top of the chat. We do have one question here, Gordon, about a sample question from the report.
Yeah. The reports, the questionnaires and the reports are somewhat proprietary information. But let me, I'll say first of all that your questions, each of your two questionnaires will not be precisely the same because everyone's questions are taken from a somewhat larger group so that the answers are always statistically valid. But this particular slide is an example of some questions that have to do with prudence, right? Remember, we talked a little bit earlier, if I can quickly find the slide where we talk about prudence. Down on the list. has to do with structure, right? And predictability. So here are some questions that try to get at a person's core values, their sort of core behaviors and drivers with respect to the prudence scale. I frequently do things on impulse. People who are generally looking for a lot of structure would say false on that, right? People think I'm a nonconformist. People who say true on that are generally people who are more prudent than others. And that's the way these questions go. There are many, many of these questions in each questionnaire, but they're very simple and easy to answer. And the way you answer them is sort of your first reaction, your intuitive reaction.
We have another question. How much does the report take into account skills versus personality?
Sonia, do you want to take a shot at that one?
So the way the personality comes into play, and I think going back to what you were saying about the identity versus the reputation, we're really not looking at skills. We're looking at identity, and with the reputation, the way Hogan came up with this is that they looked at 360 ratings, performance reviews, self-reports, and came up with these items. So it's really not taking into account, it's not a skill assessment. So if you're looking for something that's going to measure math ability, it's not doing that type of thing. It's just strictly personality.
Yeah, I would just add to that Hogan is much more of a personality assessment. So to the extent that you get a lot of information about your reputation and your personality, it has to do with your sort of interpersonal behaviors rather than your technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Now, the participant says that it could be cautionary then for using it as a basis for career change, but I do think there are some ways in which it fits nicely with those thinking about a career change.
Yeah, for people thinking about a career change, in my personal experience coaching people, all psychological tests, inputs, reports, evaluations that you have received from others, 360 feedback, your supervisor feedback, are all somewhat cautionary tales. They're all to be taken through the filter of your own personality, your own self, and how you interpret them. In my own experience, the Hogan report is uniquely helpful in providing you with insight and information about your interpersonal skills. So the questions that you see right up on the screen here, I frequently do things on impulse. I'm a nonconformist, spur of the moment. Those are not technical skills, but they're interpersonal skills. So I would say that this is uniquely valuable in providing you with information about how others see your interpersonal skills. So maybe that helps clarify that.
Yeah. And I would add, it's, especially with the MBPI, the motives, it's really giving you guidance. Someone who's high in aesthetics might want a career, might like opportunities with self-expression, might like to, the way things look visually. So it's going to give you guidance to things you might like.
Right. It's not going to tell you exactly what your new career should be, but it'll
give you guidance.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Are there any other questions? Okay, our participant follows up to ask, they presume there would be career suggestions?
In the coaching session that I will have with each of you if you do this, I would say career category suggestions, career characteristic suggestions, more than specific career suggestions. So categories of careers that would make best use of your strengths, weaknesses, and so on. But it's still up to the individual interpret what particular job or what particular career is best. But the short answer is yes, there will be some career advice in terms of the characteristics of the environment or the culture or the fit that would be best for you.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions from our participants? It seems like we've covered it all, Gordon. I think we're coming up on an hour, basically. So we do have one more question. It's incoming. I apologize if there's any construction noise, by the way, coming in on my microphone. I think our alumni know that a lot of construction happens around Baruch, though. So I apologize, though.
The question is, the answer for reputation, is it boilerplate or custom? It's extremely custom. In the interest of simple answers, it's very custom.
Yep.
We have another question. Do you think using Hogan in collaboration with other career assessments would be more helpful or more confusing?
So Sonia, I'd be interested in your opinion also. I guess my own opinion is that having been certified and studied a great deal to be certified in Hogan, I'm a believer that it's, if not the best, one of the best assessment tools in the world today. That is not to say that there aren't others that are good.
Yeah.
And what I would hope is that if you did one and you did another, and it was a reputable one, there would be great similarities between the two. Not identical, but that there would be, if it was a reputable personality assessment tool, there would be similarities.
Yeah.
And therefore, I don't think it would be confusing so much as reinforcing.
I agree, and I think it depends on the type of assessment, because some assessments are hybrid. They look at personality and other things. So if it's depending on what the measure is. So if it's, like you said, if it's a reputable assessment, then yeah, it'll probably likely just endorse what you see in the Hogan. But the Hogan is pretty comprehensive. So just doing both the personality and the motives, I think, would give everyone the information they're looking for.
As one of our participants points out, always worth a second opinion.
Yes.
So I guess if you've had another assessment, it's always worth another one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, are there any other questions? Because I think we're coming up on an hour, and so I don't want to go. I don't want to go on another one. Oh, the participant says, "How about compared to a fortune teller on all internet?"
I'm going to leave it to those of you who come for your 45-minute sessions with me to determine whether it has been more valuable than a fortune teller or less. I think you know my opinion, but I think, Greg, you should take a vote after the sessions and see whether they would have been better off with a 50-cent piece into a fortune teller machine.
Yeah. Do you offer palm readings as well, Gordon?
No, not really. I studied Hogan, though.
Oh, goodness.
Well, I think in the interest of time, just so I don't want this to get cut off, I think we'll probably be wrapping up now. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Gordon. I want to thank our friends from PPI for being here. Thank you very much for this informative discussion. Thanks so much to the alumni as well who logged in. I'm going to follow up with more information, and the link to purchase the package is in the chat, but I'll also follow up with that as well. And I just wanted to say on behalf of the entire Alumni Relations Office, we look forward to seeing you on campus again soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, bye-bye.